I choose to be a lazy son of a bitch. You can't make me try.
It's the Giancarlo Esposito meme. We're not the same. But yeah, the Xbox developer thingy do, and the games. Let's see. When I was writing my notes, I remember Ninja Gaiden 4 and Doom, and that Below the South. What is it? Under the South game that looks
South
terrible.
of Midnight.
South of Midnight, and then I couldn't remember the fourth game, but I remember it being a good one, or one I was.
The French
it was
game.
Clair Obscur, the 33X. Maybe that's why I couldn't remember.
just call it Expedition 33. It's much less stupid. There was a really retarded article that came out today, from our friends at True Trophies that said Nintendo Switch 2 needs a trophy or achievement system.
No, I don't think it does. Nintendo doesn't seem to think it does.
This is the internet's worst gaming podcast. I'm your host, Loki Jarson, with a bit of a sore throat from all the talking I've been doing lately. But we'll see how this show goes, huh, Stizzy?
That's right, Loki. I insisted you didn't do the show, but you plowed through. You said no, I'm a professional.
I have insisted for years that you edit your own audio, and you haven't done that.
What? I don't remember these conversations. But because I have a terrible memory. So, but I'd be willing to.
Yeah, this is our effort in 2025, I guess, to do more frequent shows than we did last year, which I believe was 4, maybe 3.
We were really bad.
So we've already tied it.
That's right. It's clear sailing for the rest of the year. This is it, folks. No, I'm kidding.
I have like one major, in air quotes, update. Two updates from our last show we did. The dude Corey Bush left BioWare, and Dragon Age Veilguard this week announced their last patch, and they're moving on to the next project, which means closing down the studio.
Yep, they tried to frame it that this was the end of a glorious adventure, and that they were really sorry to see it come to an end, but. It released October 31st, Halloween, and correct. About 2.5 months later, it's dead. It's gone. And yeah, considering how much money it cost EA and how many jobs it'll cost at BioWare, it's not a surprise.
The other thing we talked about on our last show is Sony had canceled a bunch of 2 live service games. They canceled a third one during our recording. Those cocksuckers. The Horizon MMO isn't happening after all.
Oh no. What will we do? And I'm not saying that because it's Horizon, but it's a live service.
Sure.
Mostly because it's a live service.
You've had a hate on for this franchise since it launched.
I don't hate it. It's just, there are some parts of it, particularly with Sony's marketing, where it seems like they kind of advertise and market it bigger than it is. Like like a lot of people have played it and bought it and seem to enjoy it, and I was one of them. But it kind of feels some parts feel a little artificial, like, I don't know. But that's a conspiracy theory.
So years ago, in 2017, I played the first one. I liked it at the time, though I had a lot of issues with the story. I did actually record a solo episode of this show talking about how much I disliked the story, and Gears of War 4, which came out around the same time. I don't know if that's still available. I didn't like that episode after all anyways. Then fast forward a few years later, they make the sequel for Forbidden West. It's the same game again, but bigger. And then I thought, I think the story's worse, though. I'm currently, as of this week, replaying Horizon Zero Dawn because it came out with the remaster. because that's all Sony fucking does. And no, I was wrong. I was right back then in 2017 because Horizon Zero Dawn's story is fucking atrociously stupid and dumb. It makes no logical sense.
The Horizon series, I thought, always had a promising premise to it, and there's a lot of good things with the games, mainly the gameplay, the graphics, and specifically the design of the enemy dinosaurs. They look fantastic, but yeah, everything else that makes a lifelong fan base, which would be the characters in the world, just falls a little flat. And that's why to this day I still haven't even played Forbidden West, just because, yeah, like you said, it was basically just a prettier version of the previous game.
Yeah.
So, but I played Ragnarok, and that was the same thing situation. So.
Oh, I think Ragnarok's way worse than the other one. Forbidden West. I can't believe we're talking about these dumbass games again. So Zero Dawn's central problem is they want to explain how the world got fucked, right? They do that by saying the guy who created the killer machines was allowed to stay in the company, and like on the board that started the whole project of resetting the Earth, they let him keep his keys. So there's this dumb cutscene where you watch a hologram of the guy who invented the killer machines killing everyone else in the building in an act of like suicide murder because he feels super guilt, and he's like, no, none of us should survive this. It's like, so you made the killer machines, that was 10 years ago or something up to that point. They let him stay there and then let him keep his administrative access. That's unbearably retarded.
Yeah, the state that the reason that the Horizon world gets in the state that is essentially boils down to, in the past, men were either fucking retarded or they were mustache twirling villains. That's it. There was really no nuance to be had there or gleaned. So it was, yeah, and that's another thing that made it unbelievable to me, because, and that sounds crazy saying that about a game with robot dinosaurs, but you can make a fantasy setting that's still believable.
I would wager you don't have to explain it at all. I think both of these games, because the second one I don't want to go into because it does it way worse, but I think both games would be better served by not explaining the origins at all. It's like, this isn't really Earth. I mean, it takes place in Colorado or whatever. But, just roll with the premise. We don't need to know why there are killer robots and why everyone's reverted to tribalism.
That might have been the better course, honestly. Just have the circumstances of what led the world to being at what it was just kind of clouded in mystery. And maybe little hints here or there, little mystery, like just little stuff that you can pick up in codex entries or something like that, but have the focus of the story just be about the world that in its current state, and whatever, like Aloy and tribe relations and stuff like that. Don't focus so much on the past.
I'm gonna blame Herman Holst because I posted with this. I was also playing Killzone 2 on my PS3 for the first time in I don't know how long, ages and ages and ages. But the first thing you see in the credits is that executive producer Herman Holst. And it's like, oh, so you did used to have some balls. What happened to you?
Same thing that happened to a lot of industry folks. They followed too many, let's say, bad trends that were going on in pop culture. Leave it at that for this discussion.
Speaking of bad trends, no, there's no good way to. Well, we talked about Sony and their miserable, stupid-ass failings with their dumb leaders. Let's talk about Xbox and their successes with their dumb leaders.
Xbox had I always forget, but it's like Developer Direct or something like that. Where
they call it, Nintendo invented the Direct. So Sony calls theirs, what is it? I can't remember what Sony calls theirs because they're so shitty. Spotlight or something?
Something like that.
Showcase.
Yeah. Showcase.
Yeah. Xbox also has a showcase in June when they usually have E3. But Xbox is doing the Developer Direct, where they'll go to the actual studios of the people making the games and interview, environmental artists or music people or writers or whatever.
It wasn't a lot. It was just 4 games, and these were games I think we knew about them all, or except for one, at least.
We knew that the rumor Team Ninja was involved in the 4th game.
Yes, and that game being Ninja Gaiden 4, a sequel to Ninja Gaiden 3, which came out, 12, 13 years ago?
PS3, 360 era, yeah.
It was a long time ago. It's remarkable, like, how long some of these franchises have just been sitting on the shelves until they get a sequel announced. And Team Ninja is co-developing this game with Platinum Games.
Mm-hmm.
But like, which team is working on what, we don't know at this point. I would assume, given their reputation in the industry, that Platinum Games would be helping out with the combat part of the game.
Right.
And which is, fine with me. They've made some bangers. Although, I would say, this is just my personal opinion, that they peaked at Nier Automata, I think, and I don't think any of their titles since then have matched that level.
You know what's weird about Platinum is their credit is always given to someone else. So if you go back to shit like Beautiful Joe when they were Clover, Beautiful Joe or Okami or stuff, it's like, well, who go get the credit for that? Capcom and Hideo Okami. Not Okami. What the fuck is his name? The guy who blocks everyone. No, the bald dude who's a bitch on Twitter. Whatever his name is. Kayami?
I thought
Kayami?
I thought it was Kamiya. Something.
Kamiya, there it is. I had
Yeah.
the H and the K mixed up. Kamiya.
Mm-hmm.
All the credit for those games goes to him and Capcom. If you look at Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, all the credit for that game goes to Kojima. If you look at Nier Automata, all the credit for that game goes to Yoko Taro. It's like Platinum just makes the game, but they don't get... And Bayonetta, I don't know who wrote those. No, that was Kamiya again.
Yeah.
So it's like, what credit, does Platinum ever get other than, oh, you guys made a good game, but you can't do it on your own?
It's a little odd. You're right. They're almost kind of like a mercenary studio where someone from another studio would come up with story, characters, design, environment, all that, and then Platinum will come in and actually work on the gameplay, which is the core part, one of the core parts of a game. It's in the name. But yeah, you're right. They're kind of bounced all over these different IPs and whatnot, and it looks like Ninja Gaiden 4 is going to be the next one. So
I've got no objections to it, really, because when we saw it was like a Team Ninja Gaiden, and then it comes out Platinum Games. Everybody, I think, collectively went, oh, okay.
Yeah, I was the same way, and it's maybe the reason why they're kind of treated like a mercenary company, because personally, I've not played every single Platinum game. They have made some absolute bangers, and they've made some sorry games. Now, that might be because they're not responsible for a lot of the art design. And if I had to think, I can't really think of a particular style when it comes to actual art design for games, because they're just kind of shuffled around so much.
By the way, I thought about this. I had to look it up. Yes, Platinum Games also made Babylon's Fall.
See, there you go. Another stinker. So,
but all the blame for that went to Square Enix. Huh?
It's crazy. It's like when they work on a good game, Platinum gets loads of credit, but then when they're working on a bad one, they're just able to wash their hands clean of it. It's a pretty nice situation they got going.
Wish I could do that. No shit.
Because they're definitely one. They've been a part of some really bad games, like I said, but their reputation is still really sterling among the industry and the fan base.
Well, because the beloved, the peak games, the beloved games, going back to Okami and stuff, and say what you will about Metal Gear Rising story, Revengeance is an incredible game. The first Bayonetta is an incredible game. Say whatever you want about the second and third. But it's like the highs are really high for them, so people don't remember the lows. They don't remember they made the Legend of Korra game.
I remember. I haven't forgotten.
I haven't forgiven.
That game was such garbage. And I guess the gameplay wasn't bad. I don't really remember much about it. But I liked Bayonetta 2. I've been playing that series just very recently, and the first and second one I thought were really great. First one's probably the best, but it had a lot of what I called old game quirks.
Yes, it's very dated.
Yeah, there's some dated stuff in it that gets patched out, in the second game. And the third game I haven't played too much of, but I have more of an issue with just sort of like costume and character design in that game more than anything else. But that's for another day. Ninja Gaiden 4, though.
Anyways, Ninja Gaiden 4.
Judging from the trailer, it looks pretty sweet. I only watched it the one time. I meant to go back and watch it again, but I didn't. But there seems to be dual protagonists. There's our main protagonist of the series, Ryu Hayabusa, is once again back with his super tight-fitting ninja outfit. And there's another guy wearing a mask and dual-wielding swords, and a lot of people kind of likened his appearance to Raiden when he became a cyborg in Revengeance.
His name is Yamuko.
Oh, really? Okay, I didn't know that. All right.
Oh, excuse me. I'm not dyslexic, I promise. It's just Japanese names. Yakumo.
Yakuma. Don't worry, I'll do it all the time. And has a lot of all the hallmarks I come to expect with a Ninja Gaiden game. It's fast, it's bloody, it's brutal. Although the main enemy types seem to be androids of some kind, or at least like these pristine armored enemies, which kind of cuts down on the gore, which is a little disappointing. But I'm assuming there's going to be enemies with blood that you're going to be able to dismember to just kind of fulfill that need. So
I'm happy that Xbox is partly funding this, apparently. So it is coming to Game Pass, so I don't have to pay $70 for it, which is my concern. Because we'll chat more about Black 2 in a second here, but I am so fucking terrible at these Ninja Gaiden games, dude. I am unbearably awful. I love like Devil May Cry 5 because one, it's an almost perfect game, but also I can play it with my shit skill level. My shit skill level doesn't help me in any of these Gaiden games.
Oh, they are tough for sure. And unlike most action games, you cannot stand still in a Ninja Gaiden game. You constantly have to be moving around, dodging, blocking, maybe even parrying when you can. But if you sit still for too long, you're dead. And I've replayed them over the years, and I kind of have to relearn that lesson when I do, because like even the basic enemies, if they start ganging up on you, they can do a lot of damage and they can kill you if you let them. And it's a fast, frenetic game. And one of the biggest weaknesses of the Ninja Gaiden, the new run that started Xbox in 2004, I think, is the camera can be kind of tricky in those games. Sometimes it can be downright bad. And I'm hoping that's something that they improve on in 4. But because the action is just so high octane, it's understandable. Understandable that the camera wouldn't be able to track as well as you would hope it would. But maybe they've made some improvements since then. I hope so.
Mm-hmm.
But they're a fun game. They're really satisfying. And they're one of the action games that I would argue where the boss battles are not the hardest part. It's the regular enemies throughout the game.
It's very, it's a fascinating thing because I think the original Xbox version, Ninja Gaiden Black, whatever you want to say, is probably the best action game ever. Probably. But it took me fucking ages and forever to beat it. I technically beat the Sigma version, which I know you don't like. We'll chat about that in a second. But in the last, 15 years, Souls-like games have dominated the action game space. You cannot... DMC5 was such a fucking breath of fresh air. And then people didn't copy it. They just kept going on with the Souls formula.
I almost sent you a photo that it didn't make my blood boil, but figuratively it did. Where apparently, and I haven't checked it lately, but apparently in the Steam description of Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, one of the genres was Souls-like.
Okay, those you can edit those. I know this for a fact. Those are edited by people.
Okay.
Not the studios who make the games.
Okay, yeah, I think I'd heard that before, but that makes me feel a lot better, actually. Because I thought to myself, oh boy, these Souls fanboys, which I'm a part of, don't get me wrong, but I got late in the game. But you're right, I do agree with you. I do hate that they're all action games seem to have just been put in this one pot of Dark Soulsian shit, yeah.
I don't even like them as much as you do, mostly because you've beaten more than me and quite easier. But, like, fucking FromSoft didn't invent hard games with Demon Souls in 2014 or whatever the fuck Demon Souls came out. Well, before that, actually, 2012.
I think Demon Souls came out in 2009, I believe. It was way back when. The Wayback Machine. But, yeah, hard games have been around since the 8-bit era. And the Ninja Gaiden in the Xbox version, oh boy, that was just another step in difficult 3D action games. And if anybody goes into the Ninja Gaiden game thinking it's a Dark Souls like game, they're going to be in for a unpleasant surprise. Because yeah, there's your character is not as tanky. If that, it sounds weird to say that about a Souls game, but it's much faster paced than a Souls game, and it's a different type of action game, and that's okay. We don't need everything to be like this one genre that has blown up.
That one's, when is that coming out? April or May or something, right?
Something like that. I have to double check the date, but it's not too far away.
So they said, oh, while you're waiting, we have this other thing. And then everyone was like, oh, Dead or Alive? And I'm like, no, never. They remade, because it's a new engine. Ninja Gaiden 2, which originally came out on the 360, did have a ported version called Ninja Gaiden 2 Sigma on the PS3. All of that shit got ported up again to the Xbox One, PS4, in the Ninja Gaiden Master Collection, which had all three games. But Ninja Gaiden 2 Black is the new game. Ugh.
It's in one of those categories, and I can't remember if we've ever come up with a special name for this, but it's totally remade assets, but it's essentially the same game, the same level design, combat, you name it, cutscenes, even the voices I think are still the same, still sound the same. And it looks fantastic, and it plays fantastic. It's always been one of my favorite action games of all time. It takes what was great about the first Ninja Gaiden on Xbox and just improved upon it. And every weapon feels distinct and are fun to play with, fun to level up with. It's a challenging game, even on the lowest difficulty level. And it's just it looks great. And they also added the ninja lady companions, and also Rachel from Sigma. Rachel might have been in the original, I can't remember, but they were all three definitely in Sigma, and they've been put into Black, and they look fantastic too, and they're fun to play as well. So it's crazy. I went back and played my original Ninja Gaiden 2 just to sort of see the differences, and it's funny, even like a game, because I think they came out in 2008, the original one, and it's funny in your mind's eye. You're playing a remake, and you think, oh yeah, the old game looked as good as this, right? It did not. It did not. It looked good for the time, but
yes,
you compare the two, you can definitely see the work that's been put into the textures, and that is reflected on the file size of the game, 85 whopping gigabytes.
Oh, yes. I alluded to this earlier. You, for years, have lamented against the Sigma ports. So originally, long time ago, when Xbox is funding this, maybe this opens up a new relationship with Team Ninja. But Ninja Gaiden the 2004 one, was only on Xbox. Years later, they ported it to PS3 as Ninja Gaiden Sigma. Why is that an inferior series? Sigma, Sigma 2.
Sigma, the first Sigma, is not bad, as far as I remember. I don't remember every single change for both games, but from what I remember, I think this Ninja Gaiden Sigma basically just added things. Like, I think it added more ritual levels, added a few more bosses, some enemies. Might have added a weapon in that I think about it, or at least an inpo spell. But I didn't mind the first Sigma. The second Sigma, however, censored gore. I believe it completely removed dismemberments, or at least really toned down the blood that come from dismemberments. It removed some enemies. It added some more, so I guess it's off balance, but I don't want that. I want more. And it made all of this, it made a bunch of other, like, balance changes that were unnecessary, and it was, it was, in my opinion, just an inferior version to the original, and that's a shame, and that's not what I want in a report of the game.
And those are the versions, by the way, in the Master Collection for all three consoles. It's what's included is Ninja Gaiden Sigma, Ninja Gaiden 2 Sigma, Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge.
Yes, and there was, and you corrected me on this, there was a Ninja Gaiden 3 and then Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge, which I guess was the Sigma equivalent to it.
That was on the same console family, though, weirdly enough.
Yeah, that was really weird. It was it was around the time when DLC was a thing, so, and it might have been paid DLC that you could buy just to expand on your original game.
Yeah. Younger listeners might not remember this, but back in the day, instead of updating your game, they would just sell you a whole new game with the updates.
Oh, yes, yeah. And it was arguably just as greedy of a practice as it is nowadays, especially when it comes to certain series like the Street Fighter series. But back then, we were just excited to have new content, so we said, oh, yeah, sure, I'll buy a whole new game. Why not? Yes, please, more.
Slight tangent, but I remember the biggest controversy on Earth, dude. Left 4 Dead came out, everybody loved it. 1 year later, Left 4 Dead 2, and it was like, wait, hold on a minute. This is the same game, but slightly better with the same price.
And ironically, the Left 4 Dead 2 became the more popular of the two entries. Because it is the better one. They did make significant improvements from the first game. So, but you're right. It was such a, I can't remember what engine. It was probably Unreal, whatever iteration they were on then. But I mean, I guess it was just kind of such a simple game to make, a simple formula. I mean, where they thought, hey, we can just do this again with different characters and tweak some things and re-release it. So, or come out with a sequel in no time at all.
And then they never made Left 4 Dead 3, and they never will.
No. Forget that game. Back for Blood, Back in Blood. It was terrible. It was supposed to be a spiritual successor, but it sucked.
Anyways, back to the ninjas. Yes, Black 2, very difficult. By the way, we're calling it Black 2, right? Not 2 Black.
I'm going to accept either one. I've been kind of switching between the two. I catch myself saying Black 2 a lot of the time, so yeah. Go Ninja Gaiden Black 2.
Speaking of, oh, wait a minute. South of Midnight, they also showed. I can't find it in me to give a shit about this game since they first announced it a while back. And some games just don't pass the glance test for me, right? This is the worst example, but I'm going to use it. For Concord, you just look at that game and you go, no. South of Midnight, I just look at that game and I go, no. I don't like the stop motion animation shit. Really turns me off for a video game. It's like, you want to make a movie like that? Fine, whatever. Video game, that frame rate's going to bug the shit out of me.
Personally, I don't even like a movie being stop motion because even though technically the Spider-Verse movies are not stop motion, but they're at a reduced frame rate, and that just bug the shit out of me watching those. I don't mind like a little Christmas special as a stop motion, but a whole video game, yeah, I'm in the same boat. I just look at it and nothing appeals to me. Character design, environment design, gameplay with the stop motion looks janky and just unfun. Just doesn't look good.
Out on Game Pass later this year.
Which I guess if we wanted to, since we both have Game Pass, we could play it, but do we really want to make room on the hard drive? I don't know if I do.
Care. Now, if you're looking this up and you see, oh, they don't like it because, no, that's not why. I don't like it for the people who made it. That's different.
Now, if South of Midnight comes out and it gets rave reviews, and not just from big media sites or whatnot, but from actual gamers saying it's good, it's a sleeper hit, give it a try, then heck, I may. Well, but for now, I'm not going to get it. I'm not interested in it. Nothing about it appeals to me. So, and there's got a lot of games.
I remember. I do actually remember why I don't like Compulsion anymore. They made Contrast a long time ago, which is an excellent game. Everyone should play that. But they also made We Happy Few. That's where things really went bad for them.
Ooh,
do you know about We Happy Few?
Yes, I do. I remember that game had quite a bit of buzz leading up to it. Even I was sort of intrigued about it. And
it was delayed forever. And that's why they've only made 3 games, by the way. South of Midnight is their 3rd game with a brand new staff. Nobody from the original Compulsion games is there anymore. And that game came out like a fart in the wind. Like nobody liked it. Instead of being interesting, the original trailers made it seem like it was an Equilibrium knockoff. We had to take pills to keep you happy. But no, it ended up just being like a really shit Bioshock ripoff, like with just fetch quests.
That was a shame, that for sure, because you're right. It definitely it gave the appeal like Equilibrium. I know there were some other comps to some other movies and such where it was supposedly like this idyllic city or setting that you were in, but there was something more sinister underneath that slowly more and more got unveiled as you progress through the game. And I never played it, but you're right, I heard much the same, that it was pretty bland, pretty dull, and pretty forgettable. So, but yeah, that game had quite a bit of hype coming into it. I remember that, yeah.
Anyways, that's why I always think it's important to see who makes the stuff, and the things they say, by the way, because the people who are in charge of Compulsion now are like saying some real stupid shit, and you go, if that's your philosophy going into this game, how can I trust you to make a good game? And if you don't think that's true, I would like to point you to our best and worst of the year show, where we went over why all of those games failed.
There's definitely a lot of correlation with what the developers believe and what they put into their game. It's no longer, and this is you can apply this to media in general. We are no longer in the state of in pop culture where art, it's not as easy to separate art and artists, and it's not as easy for artists to separate their own ideologies from their work nowadays.
Yes.
Because it used to be developers could make a game that went over a topic that they disagreed with, or they maybe totally have some qualms about, but they felt like they had a story to tell, or they just wanted to make a fun game too. That's also been kind of lost in the shuffle as well, and that's a shame.
To wrap this bit up, it's not like it's an impossible task. I know for certain that the people who made Life is Strange Double Exposure believe basically the opposite of what I believe. They still managed to make a compelling enough story that I love that fucking game. I thought it was brilliant. Despite that, it sold very badly. So you have to also think about, if the average customer who's not on Twitter or whatever hears what you're saying and it goes against what they believe and they think, it's like, okay, why would I want to buy your game then? So it is in fact better to not tell people, your social, political, economical beliefs at all. It's just like, we're here to make a product, and we hope you enjoy our product. You know who's really fucking good at this? Japan. Nintendo, I have no idea what any Nintendo company believes, and I never want to.
Japan as a culture definitely looks down on that. For better or worse, they believe in the collective over there. That's not to say that the individual gets lost or anything, but they know that they are one part of a greater whole, and that what they say and do reflects on the company.
Yes.
And a lot of developers nowadays in the Western studios seem to have forgotten that. And instead of letting their work speak for themselves and letting the customer decide whether they want to support it or not, they come out and just flat out just throw it in your face. And if they get any sort of criticism or pushback, quite a few of them have been attacking the gamers. And there's YouTubers that you and I like that have said that it's the customers that walk away without saying nothing that you have to worry about the most, because
100%.
They're not going to say anything. They're just going to say, I don't like this game. I don't like the direction the studio's going, so I'm just going to spend my money elsewhere.
So what I'm saying is, take feedback seriously and listen to underlying criticisms. Don't just dismiss them as one ideology or the other. Because you need everyone to... It's like, well, we're making the game for this audience. No, you need to make it for all audience. You need the maximum amount of people, because that's the other thing about all the games we're going to talk about today. I'm going to guess Cells of Midnight doesn't have a huge budget, but these fucking things are expensive to make now, man.
And we've talked about this probably on air, but a lot off air, and that is one of the main things that is killing video games nowadays, are just the over-bloated budgets that a lot of these games have, and the development time and the resources that they devote to these games. If they don't sell well, then these studios, they can't support it anymore. It's impossible for them to bear the weight if even one title undersells, doesn't meet expectations. Yes. As we've seen with EA this past week, its stock dropping significant. I mean, it's just like it just plummeted off of a cliff. It was insane. But it was to be expected, just with the failure of Veilguard. It's just one quick note. I heard somewhere, I didn't check the validity of this yet, but even though EA stock dropped so much, the stock dropped 3 times the valuation of Ubisoft as it currently is. I probably worded that incorrectly, but it's just as bad as it's gotten for EA. Ubisoft is in much worse state.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like, oh, EA stock drop. It's like, EA had the 3rd highest selling game of the year.
But they could probably weather the storm. Ubisoft, who knows? But yeah.
No, they're fucked. Stizzy, we take breaks during these things because I don't want to... I'm spoiling a bit of the behind the scenes here. But it takes me a long-ass time to edit this, so we have to take breaks in between so I can chop it up into smaller files. You don't care. I'm telling you all that to tell you, during our break, Stizzy reminded me of something we should have put at the top of the show. More news. Ted Price, who has been Insomniac since its founding, retired this week as well. And I think that's bad for Insomniac, because they haven't fired any of the writers for Spider-Man 2.
It's definitely not good news, I don't think. How bad news it is, it remains to be seen. They have gone to, I think, a 3-person leadership group now, running Insomniac.
When Jim Ryan retires, it required 2 people to replace him. When Ted Price retires, it requires 3 people to replace him.
And I don't even know their names, but they've also been there for a long time, but that might be a situation of too many cooks in the kitchen. I could see, and like you said, the writing in Spider-Man 2 was terrible. And as far as I know, they're still there. Writers made that game.
The other issue is Insomniac had that major leak. Do you recall last year of all the stuff getting spoiled, like all the stuff that was supposed to be in Spider-Man 2 that will never happen, and the Wolverine game and stuff with like Jean Grey and a whole bunch of shit got leaked from them.
Yeah, I do remember. Yeah, it wasn't a good thing. Yeah, and Spider-Man 2. I don't know how much of a factor it was in his leaving. I think it sold something like 11 million as of a few months ago, which is pretty good, but considering the first Spider-Man sold 50 million. Now, in fairness, I don't know if that includes Miles Morales or the remastered or the bundles,
right?
Yeah, or anything like that, but I think it's safe to say that Marvel Spider-Man 2 did underperform, and it cost a lot of money.
That's probably the reason. Also, the leaks kind of verify something people were worried about Insomniac. It's like, oh, we're just going to put you in the Marvel hell box. It's like all you're making is Marvel games now. And people don't necessarily want that, despite how popular Spider-Man and the games are.
Because they've made some really fun games, and games that have appealed to a lot of different, adults, kids, what have you. They made Resistance games. They made Ratchet and Clank, Spider-Man. It's mostly stuff that's accessible to, kids or teens at the very least. But they used to make some pretty adult stuff.
They were more variety studio, kind of like Guerrilla Games. It's just like they decided to not focus on this shit anymore. It's like, yeah, sure, they have Ratchet and Clank game, but then they seem to be just pigeonholed into Spider-Man forever. And now Wolverine and whatever. It's like, that's kind of a shame. And this has to be from Sony orders at the top, where they say, okay, from now on, you're only going to make these kinds of games. And I'm assuming that because of the shit last week with Bluepoint and the Days Gone devs.
Bend Studio, I believe.
Bend Studios, yeah. They don't decide what games they make. Sony tells them what games to make.
Yeah, it's almost like they get one successful franchise, and Sony just says, okay, Guerrilla, you're doing Horizon games. Sucker Punch, you're doing Ghost of Tsushima games. Santa Monica, you're doing God of War. Insomniac, yeah, like you said, Marvel, Funbox, Sandbox, whatever you want to call it. And then Sony says, like, where did all our old IPs go? We just don't have franchises like these other big companies do. Oh goodness, I don't know. We just don't have any ideas. Sorry, guys.
Another thing that happened is one of the guys from Warner Brothers left. Not the main guy, but the fall guy. I don't even know his name. I'd have to look it up.
David Haddad, I believe his name was. I actually looked it up before this.
He's the number 2 guy at WB Games. He's not the head of it. There's another guy who's his boss, who's not leaving, who really should leave also.
It's crazy when the president of the company is not the head guy. But you're right. I think the CEO is above him.
For a long time, like David Zaslav, who's head of Warner Bros., has been getting the shit for the way we talked about this, on our last 2 shows. It's like Warner Bros. Is one of the most retarded companies in America. But David Zaslav is just sitting pretty. He never gets any flack. But he's not making the games. He's just like, okay, what makes money? Harry Potter? Make one of those. It's like, what do we own? Batman? Make a Batman thing.
It's funny you said that. I was actually looking over the list of the games that came out under WB Games when David Haddad was there. And like he said, he's not solely responsible for every single game coming out of there, but it's basically just skimming through it. It's essentially superhero games, Lord of the Rings, or Legos. That's what they've been producing the last 12 years. And even before that, obviously, because those are big. And some Harry Potter stuff, because those are their biggest IPs. So it's understandable, but it's still remarkable that. But
then when they get stupid as fuck and say, okay, turn those IPs into live service, they lose a shit ton of money. Wow, who could have thunk? That's why Haddad is leaving, because of the failures of Suicide Squad and Multiverses.
Yeah, that was going to be my next point. These are some of the biggest franchises in the world, and it's amazing how incompetently WB Games has handled it. I just
America's dumbest company.
Now there's some gems here on this list. The most being the Batman Arkham games. Those are great, obviously. The Lego games I know did very well. Some of them. Shadow of Mordor, another fun game. Don't know how financially it did, but here and there, and of course Hogwarts Legacy. Not 2023. I was going to say last year, but it came out 2023. Sold boatloads, but even that was not enough to face them because I think Suicide Squad killed the Justice League, which reports of saying they cost WB Games $200 million. I think that might have been the final nail in Haddad's coffin.
This is a strange comparison, but roll with me. Hogwarts Legacy was like the Avengers Endgame for Warner Brothers. They made so much fucking money off that thing, but they have now lost so much after everything they've done since. Like Disney. Disney made so much fucking money off of Endgame, and they've blown through all of it, making it every piece of shit in Phase 4 and 5. Warner Brothers had the #1 seller. It broke a Call of Duty record, which again, 2024, by the way, Call of Duty won again. Hogwarts Legacy, everyone fucking played it, and they couldn't capitalize on it. The sequel, who knows if that's going to happen with the shake-up. The Quidditch game didn't sell well, and you and I don't care about it at all. So it's like, these guys just can't fucking figure shit out.
Harry Potter is one of my favorite intellectual properties of all time, and I've played that Quidditch game maybe twice. I I can't get into it, and I read somewhere that cost them $100 million. Just that game. So, yeah, and we talked about this, I don't know if we did it on the show or not, but off air, even with the success of Hogwarts Legacy, WB was still $40-50 billion in debt.
Yes. But that's largely to their superhero retardation, the live streaming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so even the massive success that was Hogwarts Legacy couldn't pull them out because they're the equivalent of 1 step forward, 3 steps back for a company.
Yeah.
They can't get out of their own way.
So having Haddad leave, I don't think was going to change anything. You needed the other guys like Pettit or Pereni or some French shit to leave also. And Zaslav maybe, but who knows? We said last week you can't predict what WB is going to do.
I guess one less idiot being in charge can help something, but I agree it's not going to fix much of anything, and it's definitely not going to turn their company around.
If Yves Guillemot retired today, that wouldn't automatically make Ubisoft better. It's too far gone.
Right, if he did it 6 or 7 years ago, or whenever those allegations started coming out, I can't remember, but that might have saved the company, or at least kept it from being in this position this soon, but who knows.
Anyway, speaking of French shit, let's get back to the Xbox showcase. Sorry for that 10-minute change, but I really should have talked about it at the beginning of the show. I forgot. My bad. Speaking of French shit, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 was the other game they showed. We've known about this for a while. I think this was shown at 2023 TGAs, maybe?
Something like that. I can't remember.
And I would describe it as a French Persona. Now, that's overly simplistic, but if you look at the menu, it's like, oh, that's just Persona 5, because you bring up the menu in front of you. It's dynamic, it's not just a menu. It's got, it's angled and stylized and that sort of shit. But then when you select your action in this turn-based RPG, you do, button presses like the Paper Mario series. Excuse me, and the Mario RPG stuff where you have to time with button presses after you hit your action.
Yeah, I really like that. It's a simple little feature, but I've always really enjoyed that in an RPG. It puts just a tiny bit more little immersion into the game, a little more player involvement, which I enjoy.
This is a new studio. I can't remember what they're called. Sandfall Interactive.
I don't even know. I have forgotten. I follow them on Twitter/X, and I can't remember. Yeah.
I think it's Sandfall. And so it's like, oh, new IP. But then you actually look at it, it's like, you know what? This looks like a real game. Not like South of Midnight, which looks like something you put together in a year. This looks like something that took a long time. And in the Dev Direct, when they're talking about the game, and it's like the passion that they have and the work they put, some studios are like, yeah, you're full of shit. For these guys, you know what? I think they've been working on this for a long time, and they really care.
I agree. This looks like it's a labor of love. And everything about it seems like it's... You're right. They put a lot of time and effort into this game, and they've used the resources wisely. Oh, I can't really say that quite yet. I haven't played the game. But everything I've seen about it, I was excited when I first saw it, and everything else I've seen about it just hasn't done anything to dampen that excitement. It's actually getting more and more. I wouldn't say I'm absolute like Red Dead Redemption 2 levels of excited or anything like that, but I'm looking forward to it. Yeah.
I don't have a lot to say about it because, like, I want to play it. It's like, what's there to analyze? It's like, oh, the story or the wacky characters. It's like, no, I want to play this fucking game. It's like, that's what I care about.
Plus, they haven't really revealed much about the story. I think they want to keep a lot of it under wraps, which is completely understandable. There does seem to be a big mystery going on in this world, and the devs clearly want the players to experience that in-game, so I'm all for it. If you can get me hooked in a trailer or two, then I'll do the rest. I'll play your game, and I'll discover it from here, and just hope for a good experience.
The only caveat I would throw out there, is that this is not a full $70 or $60 game on retail. It's $50. And it's weird to say this, but nowadays you get suspicious about this kind of shit. Because there's other stuff, like Unknown 9 Awakening, that was $50, and I was like, oh, that was bad. So you have to wonder, it's like, is this game cheaper because it was bad? I don't know anything about that. I'm just throwing that out there. That it's not selling for 60 or 70 like every other game when it's new.
It's definitely, I wouldn't quite call it a red flag, but it's definitely something to take note of. And it's not surprising, at least to me, because the graphics in this game look so incredibly detailed that, like I said, didn't come to a shock to me when I first learned that it's a $50 game, which could mean that it's not I was about to say typical RPG length, but those vary from RPG, obviously. Yeah. But it might not be a 60 or 70 hour game. Like the Persona games, which you equated them to, those are sometimes 100 hour games. Yeah. You can put a lot of time into those games, but this one doesn't seem to have that huge of a scale. So, but if it's a well polished story and great and captivating characters, then that's fine with me. It's lowering game prices. I think that's not a bad trend in my opinion, especially.
What? Go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, especially since we had news. I can't remember this week.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say. Especially since allegedly Take-Two wants to raise the price of GTA 6 to $100 retail.
You brought this up off here, and I totally agree with you at the time. This definitely seems just like a marketing ploy where they want to put feelers out and take the temperature of the gaming community and see what people's reaction to what the news was. And I'm pleased to see, at least the corners I've been lurking in, that it's been overwhelmingly negative.
I've yet to see anyone say this is a good idea.
Of course not. It is a fifth of a current gen console price. How can there is no game? I'm stating this for the record, Loki. There is no game worth $100. I'm sorry. There are barely any games now that are worth $70. Why would I pay $100? And I know, and people have brought this up, and it's a good point. They're already $100 games, but they're usually special. There's limited edition stuff.
I would qualify it to DLC. It's like, we've had $100 games for years. There were $60 games and $40 DLC. Now there's $70 games and $30 DLC. But I agree with you in principle, but not in practice necessarily. If I really thought about it, I was like, what game's worth $100 to me? But that's what it comes down to. It's like, this has to be an individual purchase. You can't go to 100% of gamers and say, you're going to pay $100. Of those 100, you might get 2 or 3% to say, okay, but that's not worth the price of it. It's only worth what the individual wants to pay for it.
You're exactly right. And I'm kind of I guess you could call me a hypocrite too, because I've spent $100 on a game before. I've spent hundreds of dollars on a game before. Heck, I spent $100 on Master Detective Raincoat Plus, and it came with a little plushy ghost girl. And
you know how much you love those. The point is, to cut you off, I'm sorry, but the point is we don't want this to become standardized. Even if GTA 6 is worth $100, that doesn't mean every game is going to be worth $100. No way in hell.
Right, and these limited editions that are close to $100, they usually come with a lot of, if not every single DLC or bonus pack or anything like, it comes with everything, or most of the time it does. Whereas GTA 6, they release it standard edition $100. Well, they may come out with a DLC. I know they haven't done it in the recent games, all 2 of them, but it's possible that they could charge you even more, and that's not including what people would spend on GTA Online, because that for sure will be something that they focus on, because it was so huge for them in the previous game.
We'll see. We know that, to get back to it, Clair Obscur Expedition 33, it's a bad name, I'm sorry. I'm just going to call it Expedition 33. Will be $50 if you want to buy it, and on Game Pass.
You definitely won't confuse it for another game's name, but that's probably because you will have a hard time remembering it most of the time. We've been calling it Expedition 33, and I think that's what the majority of people will do.
The last game they showed on the Dev Direct was Doom: The Dark Ages. This is another one we've known about for a while. This one had a deep dive. First of all, I think it's important to note, no multiplayer in this game. This is a single-player only game. I think that's a great idea, because the Doom 2016 and Doom Eternals, no one gave a shit about the multiplayer. It was just a wasted resource, wasted time.
I was surprised by that news, but like you, I think that's a good idea. I think they can focus on the single player and make it as great of an experience, as full an experience as they can. And this one looks like it's going to be a blast. The Doom games of 2016, the new ones, have been it's a great shot in the arm that the franchise needed after being dormant for so long.
I tend to be a little hyperbolic in my life. I understand that. I think Doom 2016 is the greatest modern shooter we've had, and I can't think of anything better since. To me, stuff that's come closest is indie games like Proteus, and still couldn't quite get over that. The sequel, Doom Eternal, which came out some time ago, is a major step backwards for me because of the jumping and platforming and shit. And they said in the Dark Ages, oh, no, you won't be jumping and platforming anymore. And I was like, okay, good, because I don't fucking want to do that in a first-person shooter.
Oh, they said that? I didn't know that.
I can't remember the exact quote. They have some sort of design philosophy. It's like, in Doom, we wanted you to run and shoot. In Doom Eternal, we wanted you to jump and fly, or some retardation. And this third one was you got to stand your fight. The one negative from Dark Ages is you might be standing still too much, which I also don't really like the idea, but that seems to only be for larger enemies.
Because one of the biggest...
Because they give you a shield and shit.
Right, yeah, I was going to bring that up. They give you a shield as one of the newest additions, which, when you see a shield, usually you get in your mind that you're going to be turtling up. I know you can... I think you can throw it and it can ricochet off enemies and stuff like that, but just standing still and taking hits seems to be counterintuitive with the philosophy of the previous 2 games, where they want you constantly moving around and shooting and executing demons and picking up health orbs and stuff like that.
Which is very true in 2016, and in Eternal it's not true, even though they give you more ways of mobility. The maps in Doom Eternal are not conducive to the type of game they claim it is, which is why it's such a huge disappointment for me. Because they give you this fucking grappling hook, and they give you the double jumps, and they give you the swing bars, and all this shit. But none of the enemies are like scattered throughout the region. They're all clustered up like they were in 2016. So there's no reason to use the tools they give you.
Right, it definitely feels like they just wanted to jazz things up between encounters in Eternal.
Yes.
And while I didn't hate the platform quite as much as you did, I did think it took away with the game, and it was just an unnecessary headache, especially when you would plummet into lava or some shit like that, and you'd have to start over. But if Doom Eternal, with all these different kind of weapon types they're adding in, Doom Dark Ages, with all these new weapon types they're adding in, offers different types of play style that weren't in the first two, then I think that would be amazing. That'd be great. Like if you wanted to play like the other two and just run and gun, or if you wanted to sit there with your sword and shield and take hits and dish it out, that'd be good too. That'd be great.
They alluded to something. I don't think this is the entire game. It's not an open world Doom in air quotes, but there's at least one major area that's like an open map, shall we say. It's like you can go here and do this, or you go here and do this. I don't think that's the entire game. That would be a horrible idea. But for like one major hub area for a certain 5-10 hours of the game, I'd be fine with.
Yeah, I noticed that too. I wonder if, because spoilers, it's in the trailer, but there is a giant mech suit that you get, and I do wonder if maybe you can, if that's going to be an on-rails sequence, or maybe you can use it to explore the world, but I think it's going to be the former, right? Yeah.
If you're going to have an open map like this, having played a lot of games that dally with the idea of like, oh, is this an open world or is it an open map? It's better to have an open map where you go and do shit in the map rather than collectible crap in the map. Because if you have that big open world in Dark Ages and all you do in it is like get upgrades, that's kind of shit. If there's, I hesitate to say side missions in Doom, but you need to give the player a purpose to explore your world. And over the last 20 years, all we've seen with people do with the open world concept is tchotchkes. It's like, here's some shit. You pick up a new piece of wood for your necklace or fucking whatever. It's like, I'm very tired of that. It's like Ubisoft can't get it. That's all Ubisoft does now. So I'm sick of seeing it in other games. I am hoping Dark Ages does not do that.
I have a hard time imagining a Doom game would have resource management and just sort of menial tasks for you to complete. If they had some crafting, maybe I could see that, because there does seem to be more emphasis on sort of a like medieval style weaponry with the sword, the shield, and there's armor and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But again, I don't see it happening. I think you get something, you got it, you can upgrade it. There are upgrade pickups in the previous games, and I'm sure that'll carry over to this one. But I just thought if they had a big open world area, because one of the popular new mechanics or tools in these open world games is a glider. So the Doom guy, he could like take a flying demon and
that dragon they keep showing.
He could just like beat the shit out of it and then make it take him wherever he wants to go. That'd be cool. That'd be very in line with Doom guy.
More stuff I don't care about though. They showed like, if we got no more story and there's more NPCs, I was like, no one cares. No one gives a shit. I couldn't tell you what either story of the previous games was. It does not matter. They're like, this is a prequel to 2016. It doesn't matter. Who cares? This is not why people play your games. Don't bother.
Demons invade Earth. You kill the demons. Enough said.
Mars. Although, I don't know where Dark Ages take place.
I forgot they went to Mars. Yeah, you're right. But, just killing demons. That's all you need to know. That's all we want.
It's going to be a great year for killing demons. We got Ninja Gaiden and Doom. Maybe if a Devil May Cry shows up out of nowhere, we kill demons in that too.
Cross fingers. Cross fingers. Hope so.
This one is also late spring on Game Pass and PS5 if you really want to pay $70 for it.
I forgot to ask, because the Dark Ages will be on other platforms.
all of these games we've talked about today will be on other platforms.
Yes, that's what I wanted to ask. Because you mentioned that Ninja Gaiden 4 was being bankrolled by Microsoft. So, but I thought I heard that it was going to be on other platforms, but I just wanted to double check. Yeah.
Well, Microsoft, despite what you and I might think whether or not it's a good idea, Microsoft is forging ahead with their we're going to put everything on everything because that will make the most amount of cash. And people, online want to lament. It's like, oh, why sell Xboxes anymore? And I understand. But here's the big ass but, right? Look at what fucking Sony is doing. Look how many, I want to say, billions of dollars they've lost with all their live service retardation in the last few years. Look at how many games they've canceled in the middle of production. You cannot tell me that what they're doing is a good idea either.
I certainly don't agree with it, and I might be way off base here, but it almost seems like Xbox or Microsoft is wanting to sort of kind of tap into the mobile side or market, because most gamers, when a game releases, they're going to try and play it on either the console or the PC, whatever looks the best or is the most convenient. But if you're trying to appeal to a masser audience or wider audience, I mean, a lot of people play on mobile games, but it's not going to be the best experience playing one of these games, one of these GamePass games on a mobile device. So it would just be for the convenience and the motility of it. I don't know what their in-game, like we've said in the past, seems to be the Netflix of gaming with the Game Pass. I just don't see how it's going to be shaping up for them. I don't, because Netflix got so big because it was the best at what it did, and it was a one-stop all place to watch movies and TV shows. It didn't have everything, but it had a shit ton. Whereas
it seems good.
I was going to say Xbox Game Pass is not going to have every single game, and they rotate games out at a pretty quick pace too. So
yes, monthly some games come in, some games come out. I'd have to think long and hard if a first-party game has ever gone out. I'm sure it's happened. I'd have to check. But it seems like first-party games are in day one, which is the other thing, by the way. Sony is like, no, we're never putting our stuff in day one. I was like, oh yeah, you want to bet? You want to bet, motherfuckers, with what you've been doing? You're going to have to. You need to convince people that your game is worth getting at all, let alone for $70 if you want this dumbass PlayStation Plus thing to sell off. It's like Sony has had a larger library of games over the years because they've been around longer. They've made more games. They've had more exclusives. But what did we talk about 20 minutes ago? Where the fuck are all the games? Where's the Ratchet and Clank game again? Where's the Infamous games again? Where's the Resistance games again? Where's all this shit? Sly Cooper, you just let die. You own it. Do something with it. You'll make money. Why don't you want to make money, Sony? Xbox wants to make money.
they do. I don't know if they're going about it the best way, but they don't seem to be shooting themselves in the foot quite like Sony is. One scenario I could see, I don't think this is going to happen, but this is just kind of piggybacking on something I heard regarding the GTA 6 and the pricing thing, is a lot of games are getting early access. Now, I don't know if GTA 6 will, but streaming is huge nowadays.
Yeah.
And we've seen it in many walks of life that it's also a great marketing tool as well. So I wonder if we could see a scenario where Sony releases these first-party games, as few as they are, on PS Plus early access, so that streamers can get a hold of it and start playing it early. And whether it's premium tier or essentials tier or whatever, it would have to be whatever the top one is. Maybe have those games available for early access that streamers can get a hold of, and the hardcore gamers that want to pay the extra for their subscription. But I don't know. That's just me spitballing.
No, I understand. I said this before. Like, I don't agree with. I think it's Satya Nadella's really, not Phil Spencer's decision. But this is what they want to do now. So it's like, well, fuck me. What can I do about it? You know, as a gamer. I'm more likely. Well, that's not true. I can't say what I'm more likely to do because I'm almost as unpredictable as Warner Brothers. All these games we talked about today will be on Game Pass. So there's no need, in giant air quotes, for me to go buy the PlayStation 5 version. Unless it's so great, I say, I want to play this again. That's where my double buy stuff comes from. But, I'm not going to fucking buy Sounds of Midnight. I, honest to God, probably won't buy Ninja Gaiden 4 because I'm so shit at it. So it's very lucky for me that it'll be on Game Pass.
It is very lucky, you're right. I'm glad those games are coming to Game Pass. Now, me in particular, I will probably buy Ninja Gaiden Black 2 or 2 Black for physical, whether on PS5, Xbox Series, whatever, just because I believe in physical media so much, and I'm just hoarding physical media a lot these days.
No, I understand.
And if I like Ninja Gaiden 4 a lot, then I'll probably do the same for that as well. What I'm really interested in saying is, since Ninja Gaiden Black 2 was announced during an Xbox event, but it was also made available for other platforms, like we said, what are the numbers going to be about between platforms? Because if you got Game Pass, you can get it on there for free. You're already paying for it. But for PlayStation and Steam, you got to buy it. So I wonder what those numbers will be. I think it was $50 retail.
It's 50, yes.
Yeah, so.
And again, I want to throw this out there to every twat I've had a lot of arguments with on Xbox, on Twitter X, on X. You can still buy the fucking games on Xbox. Literally no one is stopping you except you.
It's just easier to get Game Pass, and it's a better...
And Microsoft knows this, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Right, I was thinking about this just yesterday, and I've thought about it several times, but I don't have a physical copy of an Xbox Series X game. I don't have a physical copy of an Xbox One game. I have 360 games and regular Xbox games, but all of the new Xbox games, I just got them digitally, and it's usually through Game Pass. So, it is, if anything else, it is convenient. That's for sure.
It needs to hit that 0 point where it's convenient for enough people that, the other guys will follow suit. I've said this before on X, people fight with me about it, but Sony's going to cave. Sony's going to put their stuff on Xbox way before Nintendo will. Sony will cave to Game Pass pressure way before Nintendo will. Because as we talked about in our Switch 2 show, Nintendo does whatever they want and nobody can stop them. Microsoft and Sony ain't even sniffing them.
I wonder what Microsoft's fortitude will look like, because we were talking about this the other day. If the Master Chief Collection ever gets on the Switch, or if it's on the Switch 2, then I think that would be a big blow to Microsoft. But of course, they would have to allow it, so they would...
How could it be a big blow? They made money.
I don't know. Like I said, if it ever did happen, then their financial guys would see it as a boon for them, even though I think it would be detrimental in the long run, because that is their only remaining IP, really.
Stizzy, if I can give you a horrible sports analogy here, okay? You and I grew up in the gaming era of Jordan versus Magic and Bird and stuff like that, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
But nowadays, all these players are friends with each other. And us old school guys are like, man, back in my day, we hated each other. What's this bullshit? It's kind of like that, I think. I think the console wars are really over. And the winner is the guys who didn't sell the most consoles.
The only console warfare I see on social media these days is just the equivalent of a slap fight. It's just, oh, I got this game, but you don't have this game until 6 months later, and it's just, jeez Louise. And it's like they're fighting over.
Hate each other.
Well, and they're also fighting over scraps. The fan bases are,
yes,
because like we said earlier, these companies are not utilizing their franchises like they should be, because they think every game needs to cost $150 to $200 million and then sell 15 million copies. It's like, no, you can make a Sly Cooper game for $40 or $50 million. You can make you can revive these old IPs and just test the water. You don't have to make a blockbuster game. You don't have to break the bank developing a long forgotten IP. It doesn't have to be a huge gamble. Just take some of these take some members off these studios and just make a $30 or $40 game with keep going with Sly Cooper, just an old IP, and just see what the reception is like. And then if it sells a lot, if it's successful, then you can go from there.
I got a better idea. How about an open world live service Sly Cooper game where you don't play
Shut
as
up.
him, but a team of thieves?
We're getting that. It's called Fair Games.
Oh, god dang you. I was the one who would bring up fair games. But basically, yes, we are. Can't wait till that fails. I think that's it for today. Anything else?
I think so. I was trying to think. I thought there was something else, but no. I think we did pretty good. I don't know if we solved any problems, but we sure talked a lot about them. So. No, of course not. It's not our job.
Solve any problems. No, it's not our job to solve it. It's our job to play the games and tell you whether or not the games are good. I'm predicting 3 of the 4 games shown will be good. I am predicting I will like one of the games.
I agree with you. 3 of them were good. I hope I like all 3 of those games, but it might just be 1 or 2. But
well, Ninja Gaiden 4 because I suck at it, and Doom the Dark Ages, that needs to prove to me because Eternal.
Right. But it's nice to see a showcase, albeit as small as this one was, where most of the games I was excited for, and they look good.
And they're all coming out this year. This is the important thing, the quick turnaround. We are so done with this shit of what Sony does and a bunch of other companies, to be fair, is like Ubisoft. It's like, we're showing off this thing, it's not coming out for fucking ages. So why are you showing it?
True, but in fairness, like you said earlier, some of these games were already announced. So the only new one was Ninja Gaiden 4. We had no idea that was in development. That was really the only surprise. Plus Ninja Gaiden Black 2. So, but they're not too far away. So looking forward to them.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I don't know if my voice held out. I probably won't be able to speak tomorrow. But good chatting with you again, Stizzy.
You did great, Loki.
You can find me on X, Twitter, whatever you want to fucking call it, at Loki Jarson.
Yes, and I am on X at the Joe Stizzy, and I am also on YouTube, just Joe Stizzy.
Thank you so much for listening to the internet's worst gaming podcast. Goodbye.
See ya.